Lyle, thank you so much for chatting to us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. I've just seen your film, Wild Indian. I have to say, congratulations. Can you give us a brief introduction to the story of Wild Indian, first of all?
Sure, yeah. Wild Indian is about two Ojibwe men who commit a crime as children, and they deal with the fallout and trauma of it as adults.
It's quite a complicated film in many ways. I mean, when you think about the story, obviously you've written this story as well as directed the movie. Generational trauma is quite a complex thing and it's quite detailed. Did that prospect of making this film overwhelm you? Obviously you've written the story as well. Did it become more of a complex thing to actually film?
No, actually the directing of it was fairly easy. The writing of it was the difficult part. It took about 20 drafts, so for about 6 years to get this to get it to a place where I thought it worked. And but once we were on the ground, we had 17 days to shoot, so we didn't have enough time to overthink anything, and we worked hard to kind of figure out the performances and how to capture them.
And obviously it's your feature debut as well. Such a confident piece for a feature debut. Did that prospect overwhelm you at all? Did you find it quite stressful?
No, not really. No, I made a lot of short films. I experimented a lot. And once we landed on the ground and we were shooting the film, it was really a matter of just kind of using that language I had already developed to tell the story that I was intensely familiar with.
The protagonist in this film is Mukwa, powerfully played, I've got to say, by Michael Greyeyes. His performance is really haunting. The atmosphere that comes across with his expressions and the way he acts is really strong. Was that the actor that you had in mind when you were casting for this movie?
Yeah, for sure. He was the first actor I had. Definitely. I think one of the things with that character was it was initially difficult to try and figure out what kind of presence he would have. He was kind of like an alien on the page. But once I started thinking, about Michael for it early on, the character started to make sense, and I rewrote it a few times for him to, basically with his voice and his presence in mind, and it all kind of came together from there.
And it just proves what a great actor he is as well, because when you see him in interview in real life, he just comes across as such a sweet man, and obviously it's such a contrast to what you see in this movie. And obviously that character's early years are really troublesome. The person that he becomes in the film is quite a tortured soul. He commits some terrible crimes. Did you intend on wanting the audience to have some sort of empathy with him as a character?
I was less concerned with kind of eliciting a sense of empathy for that character than I was attempting to kind of tell a complicated story about a complicated character that didn't necessarily spoon feed you or give you an answer on moralizing that kind of story that he's leading.
Mukwa as a preteen as well, played by Phoenix Wilson. Again, another fantastic performance. His voice alone gives off that sense of anxiety. Such a great performance. His role really stood out for me. Phoenix
is wonderful. It was initially supposed to be a movie about a younger kid, about 12. We worked with Phoenix at the Sundance Directors Lab in 2018, at the front end of 2018. But by the time we shot, it wouldn't be for like another 2 years later, almost. He had kind of aged out of that kind of 12-year-old role, and I used him, and I knew his presence was so special and his talent was so unique that I had to rewrite the film to kind of include him and all of his idiosyncrasies.
It's a fantastic cast, and we've got Jesse Eisenberg, obviously, he plays Mukwa's boss as well. I heard that he reached out to you to get involved. Was that right? Because he's the co-producer, isn't he?
He's an exec producer, yeah. His agent reached out to me to like submit it to him, and Jesse was so kind about the script. He loved the script, and what I was trying to do, we needed a little bit more financing to get the movie made, and as soon as he came on, and lent his name and his star power, the rest of the film came, the film came together, and I was able to make the movie, or we were able to make the movie.
I'm curious to know what you think about defining this film in its genre as well, because it's quite difficult to classify because you've obviously got the dramatic elements. It's a mystery, it's a thriller. Do you feel like it fits into a bracket?
My distributor and my my investors would hate me to say, but it's kind of like a psychological art film dressed as a thriller in a weird way. It's got this dark tone. We use a lot of kind of genre language, but we use it to kind of support what is kind of like an internal brooding character piece about a complicated Ojibwe man.
How do you want your audience to feel after watching this?
I don't know. My intention, was always to make this just an accurate personal expression. I get that people experience it in a specific way that maybe I guess I didn't give a ton of care to because it was about a specific thing for me. And I think what I wanted to leave the audience with was to kind of get some of the internal struggles of what Native people endure.
Are there any other movies that you've seen that influenced you in the making of this film also over the last few years? Is there anything that really stood out? Any filmmakers that you admire?
Oh God, there's too many. Like Derek Cianfrance was hugely inspirational for this and for me as a filmmaker. And Paul Thomas Anderson, Wes Anderson is probably the main reason I became a filmmaker. Sofia Coppola, like that whole era of people just really affected the way that I saw movies and the way that I saw on-screen stories. And I think a lot of their language maybe affected the way that I approached Wild Indian.
Well, Lyle, I wish you all the best with the movie. Obviously, the run at the London Film Festival, and also when it's released, I think it's later this month, isn't it? At the end of October here in the UK. Thank you so much for chatting to me.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.